Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hi, this is Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, and I am on site today at Locus Robotics headquarters up here in Massachusetts. And I am going to speak with Karen Leavitt, who is the CMO here at Locus. And you guys may remember Karen. The last time I spoke with her was at ProMat, where we talked briefly about what they had on display there. They had one of the most interesting displays, I would say, and one of the most interactive and fun. You guys may remember there is a YouTube video of me doing a demo pick. And Karen talked to us just kind of about what Locus is into and what Locus is about. And a lot has happened with Locus since ProMat. So we're going to catch up with her today, and she's going to talk to us about the facility here and what Locus is into, and also how Locus is kind of helping companies to handle the peak season that we're now in. So, Karen, welcome back to the New Warehouse. How are you?
Very good. Thanks so much, Kevin. Great to see you again.
Yeah, it is really good to see you. So why don't you tell us, I guess, for people that may not be familiar with Locus yet, they should be if they're listening to the podcast.
Okay.
But give us a brief overview of what Locus is and what kind of solutions you guys provide.
Sure. Locus Robotics makes autonomous mobile robots that assist with piece handling really in general, because we do both picking and put away in fulfillment warehouses.
Okay.
So our customers have grown pretty steadily since we met up at ProMat. I think we've probably close to doubled our installed base. Well, maybe 50%. We're at about almost 40 deployments now in the field. And as you and I were chatting earlier, our customer sites are getting larger and larger as well. So we have deployments ranging from, say, 15 robots all the way to one of our customers has about 140 robots installed in a single warehouse.
That's like some serious volume.
There is some serious volume going on. They're doing millions of units picked every month.
All right, that's great. And that's great news for you guys, too. And I think just shortly after ProMat, you guys got some $26 million in funding or something as well,
we
right
did.
around that time?
We did. We brought in a new round, which included all of our previous investors.
Okay.
And added Zebra technology. So, a name that should be well known to all of your listeners.
Oh, yeah, we know Zebra. We've had Zebra on the show. Yeah.
And they've been terrific to work with. And if you've had a chance to walk around here, or you may have seen at ProMat, we actually had a Zebra printer mounted to one of our robots at ProMat. One of the features on our robot is an auxiliary power port. That lets you put peripherals right on the robot. So the robot can actually be printing shipping labels or barcode labels while it's traveling from one location to another. So it's using all that travel time to do that task.
Okay. All right, great. And so I'm here at the Locus facility today. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, I guess, the headquarters here, what you guys have going on here. And then tell us a little bit about the area here in Massachusetts in terms of how it is kind of a robotics hub, I would say, at this point.
Yeah, I think of the greater Boston area as ground zero for robotics technology.
Yeah.
We have the benefit of a long history of robotics automation innovation here. We obviously have MIT and Boston Dynamics, some of the pioneers in robotics technology, but then a number of other educational institutions. And because robotics companies kind of grew up here, then it also provides a terrific talent pool for companies in the area. And it also gives all of us robot companies a chance to sort of discuss trends in the industry. We all sort of meet up from time to time at associations like Mass Robotics and Mass High Tech. We get together and compare notes, and it's really like a large community here.
Definitely, yeah. And I would say we were talking before when I did a site visit at Vecna, and they were saying the same thing, that it's very collaborative, which I think is a great thing, especially for an industry that's, I guess, so emerging, and now at this point, I think growing incredibly rapidly, and adoption is getting huge now.
Growing very fast. You asked me a little bit about our headquarters building here.
Yes.
We've been in this space now for almost 3 years.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a really supersized version of our ProMat booth.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so we'll walk through, but we have about a 6,000 square foot demonstration warehouse here where people can come in and see the robots running.
Yeah.
Lots of different warehouse storage locations, lots of merchandise that can be picked from the shelves so that customers or prospects or partners can come in here and see how different types of products can be picked onto Locus robots and how the robot can interact in a small but representative space.
Yeah.
We also have all of our final assembly is done here.
Okay.
All of our engineering and test is done here. Well, actually, let me say it this way. The robots are here for the engineering and test, although we do have engineers located pretty much all over the world. Actually, in U.S., Canada, Europe, and South America, we have engineers who will work remotely but drive robots around here on the floor.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have our corporate offices here, and about 80% of our employees are here. We're still a pretty small company. We have just shy of 100 employees today.
Okay.
We're growing pretty rapidly, but most people sit here, but we do have folks who are out in the field either because that makes sense for their job, like a sales rep, or because that's just where they are. And although the Boston area is a great place to source talent, we just want the best talent wherever it may live.
Yes.
And sometimes that talent is offshore, and that's okay.
Okay. That's great. I mean, it's very flexible.
Very flexible.
It's the way to go, I think, these days.
And it's a great work environment.
Yeah. I saw on your LinkedIn, the first thing it says is you guys are hiring. So
we are always hiring. I think everybody's LinkedIn profile says we're hiring.
That's a good thing, right?
Yes.
So speaking of hiring, right? So,
are you interested?
Am I interested?
Yeah.
Are you interviewing me right now?
We
could. We'll take that offline, I think, maybe.
Okay.
So, one of the great things, and we were talking about peak season, we're about to hit peak season. We're recording now. It's the week before Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
We're in the throes of it.
Obviously, for our industry, that's the holiday, or maybe not the holiday because it's not so enjoyable for some because it gets a little crazy. But one of the great things about the Locus Bot, is the ease of use. And I can say for myself, I used it at ProMat really quick, and to figure out how to use it, it was maybe like 2 minutes or something, and it was right away. So now, can you talk about how easily that can go into place, and especially during peak season when we talk about hiring and distribution centers, fulfillment centers are bringing on more and more employees and having to get them up and running with their picking operation even faster than normal?
Sure. As we discussed back in April, our business model is robots as a service.
Okay. So
that just when people hire our robots, they're essentially paying the robot a monthly wage. They don't buy the robots outright. They subscribe to the robots.
Okay.
And sort of like paying the robot a paycheck. And what that model enables is for our customers to scale up and scale down the robot population as their seasonal volume changes. So it's really kind of like getting flexibility as a service.
That's great.
This time of year, our customers are hiring lots of temp workers and bringing them to the warehouse, as you said, and a lot of those workers are just unfamiliar with the warehouse operation. In the past, that would have required a lot of training, not just to train the worker about the layout of the warehouse itself and where everything was located, but also to train them on their picking processes. Yeah. Well, now they still hire some temp workers, but they're hiring temp robots at the same time. Okay. We will increase our customers' robot populations by as much as 50% this time of year. And what's great is when the robots come in, it's so easy for the workers to use them. The workers don't even have to learn about the layout of the entire warehouse. Yeah. They can stay in a zone, and then the robot is going to bring the work to them. Yeah. So when they encounter, exactly. So you don't have to learn everything where everything is in the warehouse, just your zone in the break room. And then when the robot brings its work to you, you basically just do whatever the robot tells you. Yeah. The robot's always going to be directing the worker's work. Okay. So that the worker doesn't really have to spend too much time thinking, oh, where do I go next, or what do I do now? The robot shows up, it gives instructions, the worker makes the pick into the robot, and the robot moves on, and the worker moves to the next robot.
Definitely. I think that's great, too. And the idea of the subscription model, I think, is really something that's kind of newer to our industry in a way. I talked to another company where they provide handheld pickers, and they do a subscription model as well. And I think that's a great thing, especially for times like now, where volume gets more and more. So do you guys have like a warehouse somewhere sitting full of these robots waiting for peak season, or how does that work?
Well, you're sitting in it.
I'm sitting in it.
Yes. Okay. We actually, over the course of the last 30 days or so, we've shipped out about 500 what we call surge robots. Okay. Robots specifically for peak season. To go out to our customer sites. Many of those will come back to us, but some of our customers will, they're seeing their businesses going on a growth curve. So while they take these robots for peak, they'll keep some of them after peak because their business continues to grow. Right. So it's a great way of making sure that the customers have sort of just-in-time capacity on their robots when they need it. But yeah, so it's an interesting model. One of the things, somebody asked me recently, gosh, what's one of the considerations you have to have before you get into a robots and a service model? And the first thing you have to have is you have to have a product that you know is differentiated and solves the problem for the customer. Yes. And the reason I say that is it's kind of twofold. One is we're taking all the risk for our customers because we are carrying the robots on our balance sheet. So if the robots aren't solving the job for somebody, solving the problem for somebody, and the customers don't want it, then yeah, you're right. We're stuck with a warehouse full of robots. Yeah. But fortunately, they are solving the problem, and the sort of corollary to that is, if you're going to develop a solution that's a subscription-based model, you have to be certain that you are going to have a uniquely differentiated, truly innovative solution in order that you can cost-effectively take on investment. Yes. Because investors are going to insist that their money is being well spent, and you're not just going to be spending it buying hunks of hardware that aren't going to solve a problem. So I think it gives our customers a lot of confidence knowing that we have a lot of skin in this game to support them. And I think that combined with the results that they're seeing have really helped to drive growth and traction for our business.
Yeah, and I think from the customer standpoint too, the subscription model probably.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
It makes it easier for them to want to try it as
Absolutely.
well, because it's not such a big investment.
That's exactly right.
Right. So now you mentioned about, well, actually, let me ask you a question first.
Sure.
So we're talking about the subscription model, and you have 500 of these surge bots like on deck.
We did. They mostly shipped out now.
No,
they're all out there helping
Yeah.
people.
So how many Locus bots right now, are out there in circulation?
We don't announce official numbers, but I'll tell you the number is about 2,000.
Okay. Wow. That's a good amount. Okay. I was curious about that. And I also wanted to talk to you. You mentioned earlier when we first started talking about using the robot for put-away purposes.
Yes.
And I think that, so many people are focused on robotics in the way of picking, obviously, because that's such a big operation and big task that's involved in warehouses, because obviously you have to pick the order to get it to the customer. But how are people utilizing the Locus bot for put-away?
So, as you said, picking is the first problem that customers want to solve, and particularly this time of year. The biggest challenge our customers have is making sure that the merchandise reaches the consumers in time for the holidays. So, and of course, picking and delivering merchandise brings in top-line revenue to our customers.
Right.
They're selling stuff, and they want to deliver stuff. But of course, once you're doing picking, you need to make sure that your shelves are being stocked, either new product replenishment going to the shelves, or starting in January, we're going to see a lot of returns coming in.
Right.
And as you can imagine, returns look an awful lot like individual piece picking, but in reverse.
Definitely.
So big boxes of items come into the receiving area, and this merchandise needs to be put away. What better way to do it than to load it onto a robot that doesn't mind so much traveling long distances to drop off just one of an item or two of an item in different locations? And what's great about using the same robots to do both picking and put away is that from a worker's perspective, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. So that many warehouses are designating their workers to one cadre of workers to picking tasks,
right,
and another group of workers to putting things away. And often they do the put away during the graveyard shift. They certainly don't want to use up the hours before
right,
the trucks have left the building to do put away. But now they can utilize lulls in the picking process and have robots, some robots armed with orders that need to be picked and some robots armed with merchandise that needs to be put away, operating at the same time in the warehouse. And when a worker approaches a robot, the robot could either be requesting a pick or requesting a put away. And so what we're doing is we're interleaving the workers' time.
Yeah.
The workers don't have to be in dedicated, specialized roles to do either picking or put away. And again, it's making the most efficient use of time in the warehouse. And we take that philosophy a lot with the robots. So, using some lulls in the order flow to do put away is one example. Another example is that we'll also make use of some of the dead air, some lulls in the picking time for the robots to go charge themselves up.
Okay.
So when a robot needs it, the robots will operate for, say, 12 to 14 hours on a single charge.
Perfect.
But maybe after 6 hours, the robot's, down a quart, but it doesn't have much else to do with its time. Maybe the order flow is light. The robot can take itself over to a charger, and in just 10 minutes, it can sort of top itself off.
Yeah.
And then put itself back in service. So again, we're always trying to use these little microcosms of time, these little chunks of time,
right,
for the robots to be picking things up, so that when the order flow really starts in earnest again that day, everything's operating at peak efficiency.
That's great. I really like that because my background is as an operations manager. So obviously I understand, you have people that are trained to pick, and then they're picking all the time so much, and you don't necessarily have the time to cross-train them when you have the little bit of downtime. So the fact that the Locus Bot can simplify both of those processes and do them at the same time, I think is really incredible. I think that's a great use of time. It's incredibly efficient as well. And it really kind of solves that issue, because oftentimes, like you said, it'll get pushed to the graveyard shift, or maybe it's the next day because we have so many orders, and then you kind of fall behind and you start to lose sight of the warehouse and fulfillment center as a whole. So it's really important that we have something that can improve both of those tasks to be done at the same time. And like you said, returns is huge, definitely.
Right. Well, and it can also get very expensive for the operator, because if they're not able to replenish or put away returns in real time, it means they're going to have to overbuy merchandise to make sure they have enough float to be able to fulfill the orders. And so it can also make it a lot more efficient in terms of predicting their buying trends.
Right, definitely. I think that's huge. I really like
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
We do too.
That's good. You gotta like what you do, right? All right. So the other thing that we talk about. So we're talking about how right now during peak season and all these different crazy times of the year for fulfillment, there's an uptick in headcount, and people will start to consider different options, especially now with so many options out there for automation and robotics. I'm curious, it's still fairly new for the industry as a whole. Obviously, a lot of big companies, like ones that you work with, like DHL, Geodis, are into automation and robotics because they're that size and they can do that, right? But a lot of smaller companies sometimes they're not there yet, but they're starting to get to there, and people are starting to see, the benefits of automation, and with subscription-based models like Robot as a Service, as you have, it becomes more feasible for them. So as that's happening, what is the reaction from employees who maybe have never really been around robots or worked with robots or in any type of capacity? How does that perceived, and I guess what's their initial reaction, and then how does it kind of play out over time?
Yeah, it's funny, you used the phrase over time there, and over time things have changed quite a bit. I would say 3 years ago, we were a little bit nervous about what the response would be from robots workers in the field. Scary. Yeah, they were a little scary. Oh my gosh, robots are going to take my job. But right from the beginning, the response from workers has actually been very, very positive and welcoming. Remember, what we're replacing is an experience in which a worker is going to have to walk 12 or 15 miles a day through a warehouse, pushing a cart that starts out weighing 80 pounds and winds up weighing 200 pounds by the time they get it to the packing stations. So it's tiring. And what we're doing is, and we hear this from workers all the time, that first of all, we're making their jobs a lot easier. Yes. They don't have to lug things around the warehouse. They're doing a lot less walking. And there have been some additional side benefits. We've had several workers just from different customers independently tell us, I go home at the end of the day and I tell my kids I'm working with robots, and they think mom and dad are cool again. So that was a side benefit we hadn't anticipated, but we hear that quite a bit. So I think the workers have a lot of fun with it. And, we've seen these trends happening in the industry overall. So you mentioned... Sure, at first blush, it makes a lot of sense for larger customers, larger 3PLs, for example, to want to use robots. And certainly, companies like DHL, like Geodis, they actually have a stated corporate strategic initiative in place to implement robotics automation through their warehouses. But if you think about what's happening in the market, and really Amazon started it back in 2012 when they bought Amazon Robotics, what's now Amazon Robotics, they started an arms race. Okay. And we're an arms dealer. Yeah. And we're as much of an arms dealer for the smaller operators as we are for the larger operators. So for the smaller guys, it's a way to compete without changing the characteristics that make their business unique and special. They can still be boutique operators, which are delivering a level of service that their customers have come to expect, while still being able to promise the SLAs that their customers demand.
Right.
So because we're so flexible, where you can have the robot population shifting during the year, or you can move robots even in one facility from one tenant to another if you're a 3PL, then it really gives those all size operators the flexibility to be able to do what they need to do to run their business. And so it really works for businesses of all sizes.
Definitely. And I think, it brings up, actually, I noticed on the Locus Twitter before I was coming, I was having lunch, and I took a look, and I saw you guys had tweeted something about, I forget the company, but it was like 74,000 square feet, and they have 10 bots, and they did like 1 million plus units or something. So it kind of speaks to your point about a smaller facility, and not necessarily having to be this behemoth of a distribution center that's requiring all these bots. It can really help your business at any level.
So that's a terrific story. This is really a unique business, this customer, and it's an example of the fact that not all warehouses are serving up e-commerce to direct to consumers.
Correct.
This is an interesting business. It's a company called Material Bank, and it's a very new idea. It's a pretty cool idea. It was started by a company that actually is in the publishing business, and they publish architectural and design publications.
Okay.
And they discovered that architects and designers, in the course of doing their jobs, are constantly having to order up fabric swatches, flooring samples, tile and stone samples to put together display boards to make for their customers. And they were having to order these samples from a dozen different vendors and hope that they all came in at the same time so they could put their things together. So Sandow created Material Bank as a clearinghouse for all of these different architectural and design products. And their warehouse, it's a very cool warehouse. Their warehouse just is filled with small bins, thousands and thousands of small bins, each containing 4-inch square swatches of things. A 6-inch square piece of stone, or a 4-inch tile, or a piece of fabric. And now a designer can place an order for all of their samples direct from Material Bank, have everything the next day, and be able to present it to their customers. Wow. And these guys, yes, have gone to 1 million units a month very quickly, very fast. That's a case. In fact, Sandow Material Bank is actually an interesting case in one other respect. They were a new company before they started working. They were new when we started the relationship with them. They had not previously been in business. They were just starting their business. They came to us as they were discussing launching their business, and we actually worked hand in hand with them as they were designing their warehouses, and they knew from the outset that they were going to automate their warehouses with robots right from the start. That's an unusual situation. Yeah. Today it's unusual. I imagine in the future when somebody wants to start a warehouse, they'll pick their robots, and they'll pick our robots, of course, and they'll go out and start up a warehouse.
Definitely. So that's pretty interesting then, because you can actually see, when you look at the numbers, like the facility is only 74,000 square feet, which is, by today's standard, is a tiny, tiny warehouse, right? Because there's so many out there that are 1 million, 1.2 million, at least I know. In my area where I'm from, it's everyone that goes up is 500,000 plus.
Sure. But imagine a warehouse where there's a pretty uniform size and shape to much of what's being stored, and it's 4 inches square. Right. So, and you can get a lot of fabric swatches into a drawer. So and I imagine it's very efficient.
I guess I imagine utilizing the Locus bot when I think about space utilization from a warehousing perspective. You can use probably a narrower aisle and things of that nature, because the robot doesn't need as much space as like a forklift does to travel through.
That's true, but we do a pretty careful job of assessing the suitability of our solution to a customer site, and vice versa. If there does need to be the opportunity for the Locus solution to make a difference.
Right.
So we really like to see 5-foot wide aisles.
Okay.
And the rationale behind that is that in order for the robots to be as efficient as possible, they need to be able to pass each other bidirectionally and still allow space for a human to be standing there. So robots are kind of human-sized. Yeah. And but we want there to be 5-foot aisle width is just perfect for us for most merchandise. That way, and then the another key determinant of whether it's going to be a good fit is the volume.
Right.
If somebody is only picking, 1,000 units a day, they can get that done pretty effectively with a cart.
Right.
And the robot's not going to make a huge difference, because in an 8-hour pick day, you don't need that many people to pick 1,000 units. Yeah. But if you're picking 30,000 units a day, then the Locus solution can really have a big impact on your productivity.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. So now, at this point in the year, as we're discussing this now, and we just mentioned we're coming up on Black Friday and Cyber Monday and Cyber Week and all those things.
This is our show.
Oh yeah, so obviously it's too late for people if they're now considering Locus Bot to get a Locus Bot system implemented. But can you speak a little to, I guess, on average, metric improvements that you guys have seen with current customers to give people that may be listening, that may be thinking like, maybe I need a Locus Bot, to give them a little, I guess, incentive or idea of how they can improve from this year's Cyber Week to maybe next year's Cyber Week when they have some time to implement something like that?
Sure, I'd love to. So first of all, it's only just a little too late. Okay. We actually have deployed sites where we closed the sale with them as late as I think early September, maybe mid-September.
Really? Okay.
We still got some. We got about 5 or 6 customers deployed in time for peak.
Wow.
So we can do a deployment typically in about 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, that's not bad at all.
And the longest portion of that is just whatever time it takes to integrate with the WMS software,
right?
Which is often just a function of, getting your IT resources available to be able to help. So it can go in pretty quickly. But by and large, our customers see about a doubling of productivity in their warehouse. And if people want to go to our website, I'll plug it, locusrobotics.com. We have a number of customer testimonial videos on there, and the customers are literally saying, I used to be picking at this level, and now I'm picking at this level.
Right.
So I was picking 75 units an hour, now I'm picking at 150 units an hour. And that type of productivity is pretty typical. We actually, Forrester Research did a study about a year ago on our business where they examined all of the key metrics that are affected by the use of the robots.
Yeah.
And they found that on average our customers are getting about 129% ROI in less than 6 months.
Less than 6 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you're a good fit for Locus, you're going to see some significant improvements.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, oh, really?
That's great to know.
It's awesome.
Oh, wow. Okay. And I remember you had mentioned the Forrester study, I guess, was going to come out.
We're going to make sure you have a copy of it before you leave
the
building here today.
Okay, that's great. And I'll definitely share it with listeners.
Yep, and people can sign in and download it from our website, too.
Okay, I'll put a link on that on my website,
Thank you.
All right, so before we wrap up here, and before I get an awesome tour and get to see the bot and
definitely want to. We
really
probably should have done the tour up front, so you'd be glowing about it while you're on the the mic.
I mean, I've already interacted with the Locus Bot at ProMat, so I'm glowing about it before.
But the facility's awesome too.
Oh, the facility too. Yeah,
yes.
I'm excited for that as well.
Yeah, if you've got listeners who are looking to work with robots, they want to work here.
Yeah.
You're going to come back to your mic after we go through the tour, and you're going to say, "Whoa." If you're in this area, you want to come work at Locus. It's awesome.
Okay, definitely.
Okay.
I will put that out there. Yeah, and I will say when I came in the entrance right away, it looks like you're almost like in a facility, which is really cool, I think.
That's really what we were going for. So thank you for saying that.
We succeeded.
That was intentional. So thanks.
Okay, so before we wrap up here, so I saw on your LinkedIn, Locus's LinkedIn, that you guys kind of put a little challenge out there, and you said that last year during Cyber Week alone, Locus Bot was responsible for picking 1.4 million units. Mm-hmm. And the question, I guess, to the audience out there is, how many units do you think that you guys will do this year during Cyber Week? And I'm going to go on the record, and I put my comment on LinkedIn already, so I am on the record, but I will say on the show that I'm going to say 2.8. But I think from what you were saying before, I'm way off. So
yes.
What do you think?
Note to listeners, bid higher. Let me tell you why. So first of all, in just year over year, we've seen tremendous traction in terms of the number of sites we have out there.
Yeah.
Now, not all of those sites are e-commerce sites. So okay. Not all of them have a peak season going on now. Correct. If you're shipping medical devices or automotive parts, what some of our customers do, this isn't really going to be a peak type of holiday season. Mm-hmm. But over the course of the year, we've seen expansion within our existing customers. So they've increased the number of robots and the size of their own warehouses. Yeah. And we've added a lot more warehouses. So I think your 2.8 million is on the conservative side. So let's see what we do. I don't want to give a number because I feel like it's going to be like an insider number. Oh, okay. But millions.
Okay, millions we can agree on. Okay. All right, so yeah, I mean, I would encourage listeners to go on there and put their number into and see what it can be. All right, so Karen, thank you so much for being on the New Warehouse podcast. How can people find out more about Locus Robotics?
Well, you can certainly go to www.locusrobotics.com. We also are pretty active on social media, Locus Robotics, and come see us at trade show coming to you too.
Okay. Are you guys going to be at Modex?
We will be at Modex. Before that, actually, our next big show will be at NRF in New York, in the Javits Center in New York City. Okay. All right, cool. I will be at Modex too, so I think we'll talk there as well. Our booth will look a little bit familiar to you.
Okay, great. All right, and we'll post more information about Locus Robotics and some of the other things we mentioned on today's show at thenewwarehouse.com. Thanks again, Karen.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.